They thought he was gone. After 12 loyal years, Max, the family's old golden retriever, took his final breath under the willow tree in their backyard. The entire Roberts family was there, tears falling silently, watching as the life slipped from his tired, cloudy eyes. He had been sick for weeks. The vet said it was time. And even though their hearts shattered, they didn't want him to suffer another day. So, with trembling hands and heavy hearts, they dug a grave beneath the same tree where Max used to chase butterflies and nap in the sun. The kids laid his favorite red ball beside him. The mother whispered a final, "Thank you." The father placed a rose on the fresh dirt. They mourned. They cried. And by the end of the next day, they began trying to move on. But exactly 3 nights later, just past midnight, something happened that would send cold chills down their spines. A soft scratching at the front door. Then, a low, familiar whine. The youngest son sat up in bed, frozen. "Mom," he whispered into the dark. "It's Max." The house was still. Silent. Only the faint hum of the refrigerator filled the air as 12-year-old Liam tiptoed down the hallway, heart pounding in his chest. He could still hear it, that soft scratching. Followed by a low, breathy whimper that sounded so much like Max, it made the hair on his arms stand up. But that couldn't be. Max was gone. Buried. They had all been there. He peeked around the corner toward the front door. Moonlight spilled in through the glass, casting silver shadows on the wooden floor. And then, he saw it. A blurred shape, just outside. Sitting. Waiting. His breath caught in his throat. "Mom," he called out louder this time, his voice cracking with something between fear and disbelief. Within seconds, lights flicked on. Footsteps. Doors opening. Mrs. Roberts, still in her robe, hurried to the door, her husband close behind. Their teenage daughter, Ava, blinked sleep from her eyes as she joined them. And then, they all heard it, the scratch. The whine. The mother froze. The father stepped forward and slowly turned the knob, opening the door just a crack. Outside, under the pale porch light, sat a mud-covered golden retriever. Skinny. Soaked from the rain. Eyes tired, but familiar. Ava gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. Max. The dog's tail gave one weak wag. No one moved. No one spoke. It was like time had stopped. Then, Liam ran past them all and fell to his knees. Max. The dog let out a broken little bark, then leaned his head into the boy's chest. The father blinked hard. The mother swayed on her feet. They had buried him. They were sure. So, who was this? Or worse? What if it was Max? The living room lights flicked on one by one as the Roberts family carried the dog inside. He could barely walk. His paws were raw, bleeding in places. Mud caked his legs. A gash on his shoulder oozed slowly. And yet, his tail kept wagging, just barely, like he knew he was home. They laid him gently on a blanket near the fireplace, not saying much. Just watching. Blinking. Breathing hard. Trying to make sense of the impossible. "It's him," Ava whispered, kneeling beside him. "Look at his ear. That little notch from the squirrel bite. That's Max." The father rubbed his forehead, stunned. No, that's not possible. I buried him." Liam stood frozen in the doorway, tears filling his eyes. The mother knelt down, brushing back the mud from the dog's face with shaking hands. I felt his heartbeat stop. I held him. But the dog didn't care about their confusion. He looked at each of them with those deep brown eyes, full of exhaustion and something else, something like peace. He was alive. That was all that mattered. They cleaned his wounds, wrapped his paw, gave him water, which he drank like he hadn't seen a bowl in days. But when they brought him food, he ignored it. Still, he never stopped watching them, as if he was making sure they were all okay. By 3 a.m., no one had gone back to sleep. Maybe, Ava started, then stopped. Maybe what? Her dad asked. She hesitated. Maybe, we buried the wrong dog. It sounded crazy, but nothing else made sense. They all turned to look at Max, if it was Max, curled up in a tight, muddy circle on the rug, finally asleep. And then, almost as if he heard them talking, the dog let out a low, soft whine. Liam sat down beside him and placed a hand gently on his side. "I don't care how it happened," he said quietly. "I'm just glad he came home." By morning, the house was still filled with a strange, quiet energy. Max, or whoever he was, slept without moving, his breathing shallow but steady. The sun rose slowly over Lexington, casting warm light through the windows. It should have felt like a normal day. But nothing was normal. Mr. Roberts stepped outside without saying a word. He crossed the backyard and walked straight to the willow tree. The fresh dirt was still there. The grave. The spot where he'd knelt just 3 days ago, holding Max's body, whispering goodbye. The red ball his kids had left was still half buried in the soil. He stood in silence, staring down, heart pounding. "I know it was you," he muttered to the ground. "I know it was." But then, something caught his eye. A trail of paw prints in the dirt. They were faint, but clear. 4 distinct pads, pressed into the soil, as if something had climbed out. He stumbled back. Inside, Ava was on the phone with the vet. "No, I'm not joking," she said, pacing the kitchen. "Yes, we buried him. I watched him stop breathing. But he came back. He's here." There was a long pause on the line. "Could he have not actually been gone?" she asked quietly. "Like, he looked dead, but maybe it wasn't really." The vet's voice turned serious. "It's rare. But it happens. Especially in older dogs. Shallow breathing, slow heartbeat, sometimes it looks like they've passed. But they haven't." Ava's eyes widened. She turned and looked toward the living room. Could he have woken up underground? The line went silent again. "It's possible," the vet finally said. Later that afternoon, Liam sat by Max's side, gently stroking his fur. The dog was awake now, but still too weak to move much. His eyes followed Liam, full of something hard to name: pain, yes, but also peace. Gratitude. Liam whispered, "Did you dig your way out?" The dog blinked slowly. Then, as if answering, Max lifted his head just enough to nudge the red ball Liam had placed beside him. The exact same ball that had been buried under the tree. Liam froze. His heart skipped. Because that ball should still be in the grave. By the next day, word had spread. Neighbors who had seen Max's grave were now peeking through fences, whispering with disbelief. Mrs. Hayes from across the street knocked on the door with a casserole and wide eyes. "I thought he was dead," she said softly, peering at Max curled up on the couch. "You buried him?" Mrs. Roberts nodded, unable to speak. And then, just before noon, someone knocked again, louder this time. It was the groundskeeper from the Lexington Pet Cemetery, a soft-spoken older man named Mr. Thorne. He stood on the porch, holding his hat in one hand and a clipboard in the other. "Sorry to bother," he said, "but I heard something strange this morning, and, well, I figured I'd better check." They let him in. As soon as he saw Max, he froze. "I remember this dog," he said quietly. "Golden Retriever. You brought him in Sunday morning." Mr. Roberts nodded. I helped bury him, Thorne added. You said you wanted it done privately, so we handled it early. I remember the red ball. Mrs. Roberts swallowed hard. So you're sure? That dog was gone. Thorne's voice dropped. But this is him. Ava pulled out her phone and showed him a photo from the week before. The scar on Max's ear. The same collar. The exact same face. Mr. Thorne sat down slowly, looking pale. I found something odd this morning, he said after a pause. I wasn't going to say anything, but... He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, dirt-covered item. It was the tag from Max's collar. Broken. Scratched. As if it had been torn off during a struggle underground. We found it outside the grave, Thorne said. Not in it. Lying on the grass. No idea how. Silence filled the room. Max, still weak, stirred slightly at the sound of his name. His tail gave a small thump. Mr. Thorne stared at the dog like he was seeing a ghost. I've worked at that cemetery 23 years, he whispered. And I've never seen anything like this. Then he stood up slowly. But if you ask me, if he crawled his way out of a grave just to come back here, that's not just a dog. He looked at Liam. That's family. That night, the house was quieter than usual. Max slept near the fireplace, wrapped in 2 blankets, his breathing finally deeper, calmer. His wounds had been cleaned again. He'd eaten a little. Drank more water. There was color returning to his gums. But he was still weak, his legs trembling any time he tried to stand. Still, he was home. And everyone seemed to know it now. Everyone, except Mr. Roberts. He stood in the kitchen, staring out the window into the darkness. His coffee had gone cold. He hadn't said much since Mr. Thorne left. Ava approached him cautiously. Dad? He didn't turn. It's really him, she said gently. You know that, right? He nodded slowly but said nothing. Then why won't you look at him? He exhaled through his nose, still staring out into the night. Because if I admit it's him, then I have to admit what I did. She frowned. You didn't do anything wrong. I buried him alive, he whispered. Ava stepped closer. You thought he was gone. We all did. The vet said. I should have waited. I should have known. His voice cracked. I rushed it. I couldn't watch him suffer another day, and I thought I was doing the right thing. He turned now, tears in his eyes. But what if he wasn't ready to go? What if he tried to tell me, and I didn't listen? Ava placed a hand on his arm. Dad. He came back. Don't you see what that means? He blinked at her. He forgave you. In the living room, Liam was lying beside Max, gently reading aloud from a comic book, even though Max's eyes were closed. Want to know the best part? Ava whispered. He didn't come back angry. Or afraid. He came back, to us. Mr. Roberts finally walked into the living room. His steps were slow, hesitant. He lowered himself to the floor beside the dog he thought he'd lost forever. Max opened one eye and let out a low, soft breath. Then he did something he hadn't done in weeks. He nudged his head into Mr. Roberts' lap. The man broke. Bent forward, hands shaking, tears falling silently onto golden fur. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. And Max, just like always, understood. Over the next few days, Max slowly began to heal. He was walking again, shaky at first, but steadier with each sunrise. His appetite returned. His tail wagged more often. And every evening, just before sunset, he'd limp out into the backyard and lie under the willow tree, as if remembering something the rest of them couldn't fully understand. The family stayed close to him. Closer than ever. They took turns watching him at night. Liam read to him. Ava brushed the knots from his fur. Even Mr. Roberts, who once couldn't bear to look, now spent hours at Max's side, whispering things no one else could hear. Something in the house had changed. Like Max had brought a second chance with him. Like the entire family had been holding its breath for months, maybe years, and could finally exhale. But peace never lasts forever. On Friday afternoon, as the sun cast long shadows across the front porch, a car pulled into the driveway. An unfamiliar silver sedan. The family exchanged confused glances. A woman stepped out. Tall, maybe in her late 30s, with sharp eyes and a tight ponytail. She held a clipboard and wore a city badge around her neck. "Animal control," she said flatly. "I'm looking for a golden retriever." Mr. Roberts stiffened. "Why?" "There was a report of a dog who was presumed deceased. Buried. Then suddenly reappeared." Liam clutched Max's collar protectively. Mrs. Roberts stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "Yes, he's here. He's alive. And he's our dog." The woman didn't smile. "We've had a few strange calls. And a body was never officially confirmed at the pet cemetery. There are questions." Ava stepped in front of Max. "You can't take him." The woman's expression didn't change. "I'm not here to take anyone. Yet." She looked down at Max, who now stood beside the family, his head low but eyes alert. Then she scribbled something on her clipboard. "I'll be back tomorrow," she said, turning to leave. "And when I come back, I'll need answers." The car door shut. The engine started. And just like that, the air in the room turned cold again. That night, no one slept. Not really. The living room light stayed on, and Max lay on his old blanket surrounded by the people who loved him most. Liam curled up beside him, whispering, "I won't let them take you." Ava sat nearby, staring at the front door like it might fly open at any second. Even Mr. and Mrs. Roberts, usually the calm ones, seemed shaken. "She didn't sound like someone just doing her job," Mr. Roberts said. "She sounded like someone trying to prove something." Mrs. Roberts nodded, her voice trembling. "What if she comes back with papers? What if they force us to hand him over?" The room fell silent. Max lifted his head slightly, as if sensing their fear. He nuzzled Liam's arm, then rested his chin on Ava's foot. His eyes were tired, but peaceful. Like he'd already made peace with whatever came next. But the Roberts hadn't. "I'm not letting them take him," Ava said. "Not again. We buried him once. We grieved for him. We loved him. And now he's back. That should mean something." Liam's voice cracked. "It does. It has to." Then Mrs. Roberts stood up. "We need proof. Something to show he belongs here. Vet records, photos, anything." "I still have his old vet files," Mr. Roberts said quickly. "And the photos from the lake trip, when he chased ducks and ruined our picnic." They all smiled through the tension. "Okay," she said. "Then we gather everything. Tonight. And if she comes back with questions, we'll have answers." They moved like a team, like a family, searching drawers, flipping through photo albums, printing old receipts. Liam even found Max's first collar, frayed and too small, but unmistakably his. And still, a dark thought hung in the back of their minds. What if it wasn't enough? What if love and memories couldn't compete with paperwork and technicalities? Outside, the wind picked up. Leaves scattered across the porch. The night felt longer than usual. Heavier. Max let out a soft sigh and closed his eyes again. Liam stayed awake beside him, whispering promises. "I'll protect you this time, Max. No matter what." The next morning, the knock came earlier than expected. Sharp. Precise. Like a warning. Mrs. Roberts opened the door slowly. There stood Agent Collins, clipboard in hand, lips pressed tight. "I'm here for the dog," she said flatly. Liam stepped forward before anyone else could speak. "His name is Max." Collins looked down at him, surprised by the boy's boldness. "Max, then. The records show he was reported dead 3 years ago. If this is the same dog, something doesn't add up." "He didn't die," Ava said firmly. "He disappeared. And we mourned him because we thought he was gone forever. But he found his way back." Collins sighed. "I understand this is emotional for you, but there are procedures." "No," Mr. Roberts interrupted. "You don't understand. This dog saved my son's life once. He's been a part of our family longer than some neighbors. And we have proof." He motioned to the table, where an organized spread of documents, photos, and even the worn red collar sat like sacred relics. Collins hesitated. One photo caught her eye, Max as a puppy, curled up beside Liam in a hospital bed. Another showed him splashing in the lake, muddy and grinning. She picked up the vet records, flipping through them. Her posture shifted, just slightly. But she wasn't finished. "There's also the question of microchip records," she said. "According to the shelter scan, he's listed under a different owner now. A man named Dalton Hayes." Mr. Roberts frowned. "We don't know that name. He claimed to have found Max injured by the highway last year. Said he rescued him, but never reported it. Then he moved away." "Did he love him?" Liam asked suddenly. "Did he treat him right?" Collins paused. "I don't know." Liam looked down at Max, who was resting peacefully. "Then he doesn't get to keep him." Something shifted in her expression. The cold mask cracked. "Just a little. Let me make a few calls," she said finally. "Don't do anything drastic. I'll be in touch within 24 hours." She turned and left. The door closed, and the room stayed still. Hope wasn't gone, but it wasn't safe yet either. The next 24 hours were unbearable. The Roberts family stayed close, never letting Max out of their sight. Liam even slept on the floor beside him, his tiny hand resting on Max's fur throughout the night. At 8:02 the next morning, the doorbell rang. Agent Collins stood there again, but this time, her eyes were softer. No clipboard. No badge visible. Just a woman with something heavy on her mind. "I made the calls," she said, stepping inside. "I tracked down Dalton Hayes." The family sat in silence as she continued. He admitted to finding Max, but also admitted that he kept him chained up most days. Said he didn't like how clingy the dog was. Liam clenched his fists. Max, lying nearby, let out a quiet whine, as if he knew. Collins looked straight at them. "I asked if he had any vet records, adoption papers, anything proving ownership. He didn't. And when I showed him your photos, Liam and Max in the hospital, that muddy lake picture, he went quiet." Then, she pulled something from her coat pocket. A sealed envelope. "I filed the paperwork this morning. Effective immediately, the shelter has relinquished all claim. Max is legally yours again." Ava gasped. Mr. Roberts sat back, speechless. Mrs. Roberts broke into tears. Liam just smiled, huge and pure. He looked down at Max. "You're home, buddy. Forever." Collins knelt beside the dog, reaching out to scratch gently behind his ears. "He never stopped trying to get back to you. Every escape, every mile. He remembered. There was nothing robotic or procedural in her voice anymore, just awe. The Roberts invited her to stay for coffee, but she declined. "I've got other cases. But I needed this one to end right." As she left, Max lifted his head and gave a single, soft bark, like a goodbye. Or maybe a thank you. That afternoon, Liam and Max lay on the grass in the backyard, watching clouds drift by. No more cages. No more fear. Just a boy and his dog. Right where they belonged. And if you walked by their fence that day, you'd hear laughter, feel peace, and maybe, just maybe, believe in second chances. Because sometimes, the heart never forgets the way home.